Thank you so much for giving up some of your evening. I know for some of you on the East Coast, it is dinner time, but we are very happy to have you here with us today. So why don't we go ahead and get started? My name is Josh Levy. I'm one of the Associate Directors of Admissions here at Oberlin, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this first year experience webinar. I am going to offer one or two comments, and then I'm going to turn it over. My goal is to not talk for this session. You are on a webinar, so we can't see you, but you can see us. You can see all of our faces here. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. It's down along the bottom of your Zoom window. There are a couple of us who will be answering questions for you in real time there. We will also be taking questions from there and posing some of them to the panelists for them to answer live for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Professor Hamilton to get us started.
Thank you very much, Josh, and thank you all for coming tonight. It is really my pleasure and my honor to welcome the newly admitted students to Oberlin College. Welcome to you and welcome to your families. I am delighted to talk with you and with my colleagues gathered here about the first year at Oberlin, because it's always a very special year. And this, of course, will be a year like no other because you are here. And so we want to tell you about a few things. My current role is Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and Associate Professor of German. I have chosen as my background tonight one of my favorite places on campus. It's a monument to Johann Friedrich Oberlin, the person for whom our college was named. Back in the 18th century, in a little village in the Alsace region in between France and Germany, he pastored a church and a wonderful community, whether or not people were members of the church or not. And they worked together to create meaningful lives of purpose, of inclusion, of diversity back in the 18th century. One example, Pastor Oberlin designed what's on this monument. If you stand on one side of it, you'll see an image. You'll see the image that I see tonight. Maybe my colleagues can see that image in the center. Professor Garvin, what do you see? You see a bird. If you stand on the other side, you'll see something else entirely, because the image is carved into an accordion pleated surface. Perspective mattered to Pastor Oberlin way back then, and it matters now. He used this statue to help couples learn to see from one another's perspective. Stand on one side, report what you see, and then stand on the other side and report what your beloved sees. That's really one wonderful way to enlarge your view of the world, to understand another person, and to learn how to speak and listen. I think that's a beautiful model for our college, and it's an ethos that I see here every day. Let me introduce other colleagues here who can tell you about their roles at Oberlin and begin to respond to some of your questions. First, I'll turn to Associate Dean of Academic Advising and our Registrar, Tricia Pottinger.
Hello, again, my name is Tricia, and I have two roles at the college. I am both the Associate Dean of Academic Advising, overseeing academic advising for students in arts and sciences and for double degree students for their arts and sciences advising, and also the registrar. The registrar's office is responsible for supporting students from their very first registration all the way through printing diplomas and providing those to students as they complete their Oberlin trajectory and their arc. I have been at Oberlin for 10 years and worked in a number of different roles. Prior to my current role, I worked in an area that connected community and college. And one of my favorite things about being at Oberlin is that being at Oberlin, one is also part of the city of Oberlin community, and also the county of Lorraine, where we're located, and really within Northeast Ohio, so that context and place really matters to live here, to work here, and to study here.
Thank you so much. Let's turn to Professor Mary Garvin.
Hi, everybody. I'm a professor of biology in the biology department here at Oberlin. I've been here about 23 years. I'm an ecologist, community ecologist. Specifically, I'm a disease ecologist, so I'm interested in the interactions between species that allow for disease transmission. My role on campus has included a committee member for the first year seminar. It's governed by a committee or advised by a committee. And I was part of the first set of first year seminars that came out about 20 years ago. So we're very proud of that program, and I'm happy to answer questions about it today. I'm also a committee member on the new global health concentration that we're also very excited about, that we'll be launching in the fall semester and connected to our career communities and our alumni. What I love most about Oberlin is I love to work with students. I have many research students in my lab in different capacities in the field and lab. And I teach upper level biology courses and the larger introductory biology courses. And I can't really choose one that I like the best because I just enjoy the flavor of all of them. So happy to talk more about any of those courses if you like.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure now to introduce Oberlin alum and our colleague, Nathan Carpenter.
Great. Thanks so much. And hi, everybody. And I just want to first say congratulations to all of you for making it here to this moment. As Dean Hamilton said, I am an Oberlin alum as well, in addition to my role at the college. And I know how exciting this moment is, and it's such a privilege for me to now be working at the institution and get to be a part of this moment with you all every year. So my name is Nathan Carpenter. I'm the director of the Peer Advising Leaders PAL program, and I've been in that role since June of 2020. As you can imagine, the PAL program looked a little bit different this last fall than it did in pre-COVID years, as we worked to really develop and expand the program to meet the needs of students who were transitioning to Oberlin. And throughout all of that, what really remained the core was the program's ethos, what we like to call OBs helping OBs. And that really shone through in the work of our pals and our partners across campus. Now we're all really excited to welcome you all into the incoming class of 2025. And I just want to talk a little bit about the program structure as some framing before we jump into our conversation. And we're also lucky to be joined by Isa, who's a current pal who we'll introduce in a moment. So the PAL program uses a cohort-based peer advising model to help new students transition to Oberlin life and learning. And your PAL will really play an instrumental role in your first semester at Oberlin in collaboration with the first year seminar program and other departments and offices across campus. And so each PAL leads a cohort of 15 new students, and you stay in that cohort throughout orientation in the fall semester. And that cohort is tied to the first year seminar. And so what that means is the same cohort of 15 students move together throughout their first semester, sharing experiences inside and outside the classroom. And it's also one of the key reasons why oftentimes students will find their first group of OB friends in their PAL cohort and in their first year seminar. Like I said, the meetings begin in orientation and continue through the fall semester. PALs will work with you to prepare to meet your advisor, to help you register for classes, to navigate that first week of the fall semester, and a lot more. And so as an incoming student, you'll get to know your PAL as we get closer to the fall semester. But I want to quickly first mention an opportunity that's a little bit closer to connect with the PALs, which is through the Healing Democracy course that's been built for your incoming class. It's a virtual course offered to students admitted to the class of 2025. And you've already received an email about this, but I want to take a moment to mention it again and to really encourage you to register for that course. Not only are we in that course going to be exploring some really important questions about the current landscape of democracy in the United States, but you'll also have an opportunity to connect with your future peers in discussion groups that are led by current PALs, current students who work as PALs. And I know Isa is going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment. But when we launched this model last spring with a course that focused on COVID-19, one of the things we saw is that even beginning in April, the incoming class was able to build connections with each other and start to form relationships that they carried into the fall semester. So I know Josh has put that link in the chat. Thank you, Josh. And I'd really encourage you to take a look at that course, register if you're able, and let me know if you have any questions. So I know that was a lot. I'm happy to chat more about any of that as we go through. But I'm going to hand it off to Isa now, who's one of our fantastic pals.
Hi everyone, my name is Isa. I use she, her, and I am a third year at Oberlin. I'm currently double majoring in politics and computer science with a minor in statistics. Around campus, I do quite a bit of research within both the politics and past in the psychology department. I'm involved in WOBC, which is our student radio station. I work as a PAL, peer advising leader, as Nathan mentioned. I also work in admissions as a tour guide. And when co-ops are running, I am a big fan of Tank specifically, but I love our co-op system as well. But yeah, just kind of getting into being a PAL and why I've kind of been so in love with the program, not only when I was a student, but also giving back and being able to be a PAL now has a lot to do with what Nathan said about OBs helping OBs. And this like really amazing feeling of community when you first, first meet your cohort, and then working with them throughout the first semester is really awesome. And being able to be a PAL now, take a step back and see those kind of connections foster is always just super gratifying and really awesome. And so one of the ways, like Nathan mentioned, are the courses the course that we're having for the summer, which is Healing Democracy. Last year, we had a course called Uncovering COVID. So that was very topical and was really awesome to kind of lead. And I was a leader in that, helping incoming students kind of dip their toes into what a college course entails in a pretty like low stakes environment. You're going into it with all students who are in the same place as you, who are all, they haven't had any experience being in a college course, and we kind of go over, what a discussion looks like, what readings might look like, and different kind of writing and reflection that we emphasize here at Oberlin. It's also a great way to make friends. As I said, through being a PAL, it's the most gratifying experience to be able to kind of teach or mentor students that are incoming, and then come to campus and see them all hanging out, getting lunch together. My cohort actually like had a group chat and would text each other like to pick up basketball and hang out and all that fun stuff. So we really do make it simple to be able to lessen the anxiety once you first get to campus and have a really great group of students that are able to get close pretty quickly. And then lastly about Healing Democracy is you get credit for it, which is awesome. It's a really great way, again, to kind of dip your toes into a college course and be able to get credit for something that is really important to Oberlin, kind of the dissection of democracy and things that we kind of champion here and whatnot. And so yeah, I really think the first year seminar program is great as well. As Professor Garvin and Professor Hamilton have stated, the first year seminar is a really great program. Actually, all of the professors that teach it have to apply to teach the course. So you know that the people are really, really invested in aiding first years into what a college course looks like. I always love to say my first year seminar teacher, I only had one class with her my first semester, fall of my freshman year. And yet we were able to become so close that she has written every single recommendation letter that I've needed. And I'm now a junior. So it's a really awesome program. And I can also talk a little bit more about that and student life in general, if you have any questions.
Wow. Isa, thank you so much. You know, as you were speaking, you saw a lot of nods from the panelists here, and you also began to address several of the questions that have come from our participants in the question and answer format. And I wondered if we can hear it a little bit more from you and from Nathan. First, about the Healing Democracy class. What will the workload look like? What will the actual work look like? The forms of engagement. Could you give us some details about that?
I'll take that first, and then I'll pass it off to Isa. The course is meant, as Isa was saying, to be really an invitation to join our learning community here at Oberlin. It's not meant to be a ton of work to add to the end of your senior year. And so really the focus of the course will be the weekly meetings, where you first will hear a lecture there's President Ambar, and 7 Oberlin faculty members are offering lectures from a range of different academic disciplinary perspectives. And then those lectures are followed by the discussion groups led by the PALs. And that's really the focus of the course. Each week, the faculty member will provide a reading ahead of time, generally a short article, and a short assignment as well, typically a 1 to 2 page written reflection of some kind. It's not meant to be formal. It's more so to help you kind of catalog your thinking as you move through the course. So Isa, I don't know if you've actually seen the Healing Democracy syllabus yet, but maybe from uncovering COVID, what that course looked like, and how community developed in the discussion groups.
Yeah, I did kind of touch on it a little bit, but the bulk of that course, and I would say courses maybe in general here at Oberlin, have to do with discussion and being able to kind of, as Professor Hamilton say, take in perspectives as well as share your own in an articulate manner. And so while there is, various readings, maybe podcasts or videos that we end up assigning for those courses, like I said, it's low stakes. And so kind of just being able to articulate thoughts to one another, and make connections between the various topics and whatnot, is where the course is kind of most centered in. And it is very based on that creation of kind of communal knowledge between the cohort. And so we kind of dissect the different topics, but for the most part, let the conversation flow to where is most interesting to the group, as well as what is maybe the most informative kind of way to look at things and whatnot. Yeah.
And I neglected to mention, sorry, you don't have to yet be committed to Oberlin in order to register for the course. It is open to any student who has been admitted. And so just wanted to add that distinction.
Mm-hmm. I think an important quality of that course is the bringing together of liberal arts perspectives from many different disciplines in order to test how a perspective informs what we understand about such an important topic as democracy. There's been a question about interest in that course. Yet, what if there's a scheduling conflict?
For scheduling conflicts, please just send me an email, and we'll kind of see, at the very least, we'll be able to provide lecture recordings, but I'm happy to chat with you to see if there's a way for you still to be able to join the course. So maybe Josh, put my email in the chat, and I'll send it to you, and we can handle it that way.
Great. Thank you. We've had a lot of questions in response to Issa's comments and general interest about the first year seminar program. What does the curriculum look like? How do students choose their seminars? What can they expect in a seminar? Professor Garvin, would you like to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, so the first year seminar program is an exciting introduction to the liberal arts, and introduction to college at Oberlin. And so we have a broad array between 44 and low 50s seminars to choose from across the curriculum. Professors from all departments and from topics that range from astronomy to various forms of literature to art. Mine is on a local watershed. Other colleagues in biology is on evolution, conservation, and the first year seminars are not so much content driven. We just use content as a framework to introduce the liberal arts. So these broad perspectives needed to solve problems, and critical thinking skills that range from empathy for others' perspectives, to reflection, to evidence, to formulation of logical arguments. We emphasize writing throughout the Oberlin curriculum, but especially in the first year seminar program, because we believe that clear writing is clear thinking, and that's a skill that no matter what you do after Oberlin, that writing is important for that. So most first year seminars have recursive writing assignments where students submit many papers or multiple papers during the course of the semester, get comments back on those papers, revise, resubmit. We workshop papers together in class, and we also work discussion skills and presentation skills. And so many courses, including many science courses, are based in discussion, and professionally approaching those discussions and contributing to the community, the learning community, in productive ways is an important skill that we want students to have a firm grip of as they launch into the introductory and upper level courses. So we directly talk about discussion and writing skills, and also presentation skills, which is part of our rhetoric and composition curriculum here. So but then informally in the course of these discussions, we learn how to deal with different perspectives, tense issues, different backgrounds. So trying to embrace the diversity that makes a democracy what a democracy is, and a liberal arts institution what we hope it to be. And just a couple things about the first year seminar that have already been mentioned, but I want to underscore, and that is, this is pretty much the first group. This is one of your very first intellectual communities at the college. And I have found in these 20 years that I've taught my first year seminar that the students end up their senior year coming back together with their first year seminar group. We've had multiple reunions during senior week from these groups, because these cohorts come in together, they share the same problems, they solve those problems together. And some of those problems in classes, how do I get into a class when it's consent and the seniors are banging down the door? And how do I rent art? How do I deal with a professor that I'm afraid to talk to? So the value of all these things in approaching an education. And so I feel particularly close to my first year seminar students. Many of them become my research students, even though I try not to recruit them specifically into that, but I suppose the topic brings them into the course. And as was mentioned, I stay in contact with these students long after they leave Oberlin. So this is a long-term relationship that forms organically out of a shared respect and interests.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I will address one question from the chat by way of introducing another, and then I'll turn to Dean Pottinger to talk about the logistics of selecting courses. Mm-hmm. But in transition, I'd like to respond to the question of how faculty decide which courses to teach in the first year seminar program. I also teach in the first year seminar program, as many of my peers, from every single discipline on campus, the natural sciences, the social sciences, the arts, the humanities. Every faculty member is invited to apply to teach a first year seminar. And the question is this always in that person's strict disciplinary area of expertise? And the faculty all bring expertise on the subject that they offer, but very often it is something that bridges their home department with another broader, bolder question that is a passion or is an area of persistent curiosity for the faculty. And so they base their seminar on a driving question. It is not a 101 course for any department. It's not History 101, it's not Biology 101 nor German 101. My seminar is on disability. It's been an area of interest of mine for quite some time. It is not a German course per se. It's a question about what is disability, who says so, and why, and what does that matter? Broad multidisciplinary course. The questions are gathering on how students will know what seminars are offered and when they will know and how they make that choice. So, Tricia, would you volunteer your insight?
Sure. So the full list of first year seminars that will be available for the next academic year will be available in mid to late May. And you'll get additional information about the process for reviewing the options that are available and how you'll share what your preferences are. And that timeline is mid to late May, early June. We will invite you to indicate up to 5 preferences that interest you, and then we will work to place you in one of those 5. I really encourage you to think broadly and openly. I think that many of us can attest to conversations that we've had with students who really had their mindset on one seminar and then they end up in another seminar, and it just really opens their academic experience in ways that they really didn't anticipate. So always encouraging students to think broadly, and it's an opportunity to kind of try something on, even if it's not what what you were first drawn to. So yeah, that's my take on the process there.
Thank you. I see a number of terrific questions, recognizing the strong presence of the arts on Oberlin's campus, and asking, what about other spheres of inquiry and engagement and professional development and possible careers? What about the sciences? How would a first-year student engage with the sciences? Would a first-year student who's strong in the sciences feel comfortable in a first-year seminar doing a lot of writing? Tell us about the sciences, the STEM fields for first-year students at Oberlin. Who'd like to volunteer? Maybe Isa and maybe Professor Garvin?
I'd be happy to. Isa, would you like to start?
Sure. I will just say we have the most beautiful science center ever. I spend a ridiculous amount of time just sitting in the silent library with those like big beautiful windows that look out onto the quad. But what's interesting actually about that building is it has more lab space than it does lecture classroom space. And so that really lends itself to this idea that Oberlin is really invested in hands-on learning and allowing students to really apply the things that they're taking and learning in the classroom into other aspects and fields. So that's one kind of aspect of the science departments and STEM fields. But another is this idea of interdisciplinary education. And so within kind of any class that you end up taking here at Oberlin, it's not like you go into I don't know, a psychology class and you're not talking about the political implications of some of the theories. Or if you end up taking a first year seminar that is interested in biology, you'll end up maybe at the Allen looking at how the art that we have on display intersects with the ideas that you're talking about in class. And so when it comes to specifically, I saw a question about healing democracy and having someone who's more interested in STEM being interested in the class. The answer is it's not just, you know, a politics class. It's not just that. We will look at all of the different kind of sides of democracy and how we end up kind of defining it, where we see it going. When it came to the Uncovering COVID class last year, what we did was have professors from all the different departments, from politics, from the science departments, from biology, from neuroscience, all those people come in and lecture and talk to students to give the different perspectives on COVID-19 and kind of all of the different implications. So when it comes to STEM at Oberlin, it's definitely not restricted to a department or a science center or, you know, anything like that. Whatever you're interested in at Oberlin, you have a bunch of different avenues kind of where you end up seeing that interconnecting, which is really awesome, and why you end up meeting students like me who have a major in politics and computer science, like two things that you wouldn't think connects, but because of the interdisciplinary environment that we have here and the ability to kind of connect those things both inside and outside of the classroom, those things are really commonplace here, and it's really awesome.
I appreciate hearing that, Isa. That leads very nicely into an important question that was raised in the chat about the nature of dialogue over difficult and challenging topics. How is it, our questioner asks, that Oberlin students and faculty and staff engage in conversation where there might be a range of political or social viewpoints? How do we teach students to consider alternate points of view and weigh evidence and disagree perhaps or agree, yet not default into a crass canceling of another person's point of view? I'm going to invite some comments on that. I'd like to offer some of my own. Again, this monument informs me greatly. The practice of pausing to reflect on another person's point of view and to physically turn to that other person's point of view and put myself in that person's perspective, to the extent that I'm able to do that, has been invaluable. Learning to weigh evidence in an analysis has been an important part of humanities, natural science, social science education here at Oberlin. It's a critical element in our first year seminar program. We come and are known for our enthusiasms and our passions. And one of the strong skills we try to teach students is to argue dispassionately, is to bring the temperature down a little bit when we find ourselves being heated in an argument, pausing, analyzing strong feelings. They're coming from somewhere. Maybe they are informative, but maybe they are not the end of the story. I think these are very important practices that we engage in all the time at Oberlin. Absolutely in our first year program, very explicitly. But I think there are other moments where we work hard to engage respectfully. Nathan, might I turn to you for your insight into that question?
Absolutely, thank you. And I'll echo, Elizabeth, your appreciation for this question. I think this is a really important one. And this is something we spend a lot of time talking about in the PAL program, both in kind of a couple ways. So first, as you can imagine, the PALs, we spend a lot of time in training and workshop preparing for that role. And this is something that I spend a lot of time, and my colleagues as well spend a lot of time with the PALs, thinking about how to have this conversation, how to talk about the way that we engage each other, how to develop shared norms for conversation that really promote seeking the ability to engage in conversation across difference. So we spend a lot of time talking about that. And then the incoming students, the new students in working with their PALs, there's a lot of conversation in the cohorts as well, the development of shared norms for conversation, and a variety of different conversations. It's something we'll spend a lot of time thinking about in the Healing Democracy course as well, in terms of being very intentional, particularly in the beginning of the course, to develop trust within discussion groups, and then building on that trust to engage in these really important but really complicated, complex, and sometimes challenging conversations that this particular topic can lead us to.
I might just quickly jump in to give a little bit, I don't know, of a personal take on it. I am from Los Angeles, California, and the reason that I chose Oberlin was because I had never met or been surrounded by a more welcoming group of people in my life. And I remember my first kind of week at Oberlin getting culture shock, that I would be walking down the street and complete strangers would like wave hello at me and want to engage with me and know who I was. And so when it comes to this idea, Oberlin is not a group of people who are out to cancel one another. We're a group of people who are interested in having conversations. We're not interested in calling people out, but calling people in, and really talking about kind of where these and coming at it from an understanding and empathetic point of view. And so, yeah, I personally, yeah, that's just where I come from.
Thank you so much. I think you say it very well, Lisa. One of the questions about ostensibly a different topic, I find illuminates this topic. The question is, if a student comes in with a strong interest in art, will that student also be able to have access to science courses? And I think yes, and yes. This is the joy of the liberal arts at Oberlin. And I think this is also something that's at the root of Oberlin's capacity to see things from a different perspective. We know so many students who major in things like neuroscience and oboe, because they cannot imagine a world that doesn't have a very large proportion of each. Isa, you have multiple majors and a concentration as well. And this is I think quite characteristic of Oberlin. Students come with an appreciation for art, a desire to apply that knowledge in the service of humanity, and awareness of the natural world and a desire to learn from it. So I think these are important curricular and intellectual approaches that we foster here. Mary.
Yeah, if I could just add a little bit to that. Some of the best classroom experiences I believe we've had with seniors who are in introductory biology courses or upper level biology courses, who are creative writing majors or art history majors or philosophy majors. And particularly in the 100 and 200 level courses, we have a number of students who take those for their natural science distribution courses, or just out of general interest. Many biology majors are creative writing majors, or I should say science majors in general. have other majors in the humanities or social sciences. So those students bring really special perspectives that we very much value into the classroom. Could I also just go back quickly to a point that was
Yes,
made earlier, Elizabeth? And
please.
that was about respectful dialogue in class.
Yeah.
And some of the more difficult moments with teaching right now are these moments, but they're also the most teachable moments and maybe the most rewarding. And with the heated national debate in recent years over a number of topics, I think first-year seminar instructors have struggled with this. I actually have received advice from our ombudsperson on campus about how to deal with this, and we've shared this with other first-year seminar instructors. We tend to get upfront, as Nathan had mentioned in some of his comments, and we give our expectations for respect in the classroom, knowing that we will also all fail at that at some point, but it's always okay to step back. Some of those moments when we fail are some of the best moments for coming together as a community, gaining trust as we stop, slow down, reflect, and then move forward. And I think those are actually some of the most extraordinary moments in classes.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yes. I'd like to talk about additional aspects of our community, including the relationship of our conservatory to our College of Arts and Sciences. The number of opportunities there are to make music, to learn through music, to have a major or a minor or a concentration in music are really quite extraordinary at Oberlin. There is music in the air. Maybe for this, I will turn to our registrar, Dean Pottinger, for a few pieces of insight.
Sure. I wanted to share some new programs that we have, in particular minors. So there are, actually, I'll start at the major level. There are some students who choose to major in musical studies, and I would ask Dean Hamilton to speak to that as one of the co-chairs. But for students in other areas, there are a number of minors that bring together the college and conservatory, and this is our first year of those, and we're very excited. It includes things like music and cognition, music and popular culture, interdisciplinary performance, arts and creative technologies. So really speaking to some of the things that Isa said, just in terms of the interdisciplinarity, thinking about how students bring together different pieces of their intellectual interests through their academic studies.
Mm-hmm. There really are wonderful ranges of opportunities. So thanks for pointing out the great new programs that we have, and also the longstanding programs that we have. The musical studies major is a longstanding college-based major for people who want to study music academically and have some performance and practical opportunities in their studies, but they're not, strictly speaking, developing themselves to have a career in performance. For those students, they would choose to apply to the Conservatory of Music. And yet so many people have such a strong foundation in music and want to continue to grow that they have chosen that major, but the many new opportunities for integrative concentrations and the minor in music really allows college students to combine their love for music and their desire to practice music and experience the world through music. Has really been a tremendous enrichment. You may, I'm answering one question here from the chat, have conservatory and college students in your classes. So many of our classes, including our first year seminars, are organized around musical themes. So this is also another way to pursue music and get your feet wet if you're trying something for the first time, or to continue a longstanding interest that you might have had. I have seen several questions about our co-ops. Could we have a little bit more discussion about our co-ops? And Isa, I'm going to turn to you if you'd like to volunteer your experience with our co-ops.
Yeah, totally. So co-ops are basically, we have living and dining co-ops here at Oberlin. And so you can do both or a combination of, you can just live in one, just eat in one. I just eat in my co-op. But basically what it is a group of people who are kind of committed to working together and I guess, providing for one another in a sense. And so co-op members spend about 4 to 5 hours a week on different tasks, whether that be cooking meals, cleaning up after the meals, or whatnot, to provide 2 home-cooked meals a day to our co-op, as well as buying the food and figuring out the meals, making the schedule. So everyone kind of has different jobs when it comes to the co-op. But it was actually one of the biggest selling points when I first had my Oberlin interview, was the alum kind of saying, like, the one thing I regret doing when I was at Oberlin was not joining a co-op. Because the community that you end up finding in the co-ops is so, as I've said, like, open and loving. And it's really gratifying to be able to kind of take an hour out of my day, head to the kitchen, chop up some onions for a little bit, and know that I'm really helping to provide for my fellow students in a way that's really meaningful and awesome. And it's also great, like, you get to learn really practical skills that help, us become adults, whatever that means. And so, like, for example, I didn't know that you had to massage kale before you ate it, but that's something that I learned through working at a co-op. And so it's a really, great way to, again, kind of gain other kind of I don't know, skills and such. Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Mm-hmm. That's really terrific. I think you've demonstrated tonight, Isa, how deeply engaged Oberlin students are, with many, many very meaningful activities that bring you a lot while you're doing them, and that you'll carry into your life after Oberlin, once you have your Oberlin degree in your pocket. Oberlin students, in my experience, are never bored, and they have a great array of projects, commitments, and places where they're really deeply dedicated. One example is that Oberlin students have very busy schedules. And 2 of our panelists tonight are going to be supporting Oberlin students in really meaningful activities. And before our panelists have to exit our conversation, I wanted them to give you an opportunity to hear about some of the really interesting things Oberlin offers on a Thursday evening. Nathan, would you tell us where you're headed next?
Absolutely. So I am off to what could maybe be described as the opposite of the transition to the first year experience. I'm going to be helping to facilitate a workshop for our senior launch program, which is a program that is designed for our seniors in their final semester here before they graduate. And it's a lot of different skills that are covered as part of this program. It's overseen by our Career Development Center, which is a really fantastic office here on campus that I know will be discussed in more detail on future webinars as well. But today's topic is interviewing skills. And so I'll be helping to facilitate a workshop with our seniors as they workshop some of those skills, and as many of them prepare for upcoming job or grad school interviews or wherever they're headed next.
Thank you. Dean Pottinger also has an important appointment shortly. Where are you headed?
I am headed to the Bonner Scholars Program Senior Presentations of Learning. I have, in my time at Oberlin, worked closely with the Bonner Scholars Program, which is a community engagement scholarship program that supports students who have high commitments to service. And students have an organization that they work with over the course of a semester, or sometimes over the course of 4 years. It's a 4-year scholarship program. And they do both service. It's a cohort-based program. They form connections with one another, with community members. And this evening is kind of the beginning of their reflection of their time at Oberlin as Bonner Scholars and how that has connected with their community engagement, their academic paths, and their personal and professional paths. And so it's really an opportunity for reflection and synthesizing their learning. So that's where I'm headed to.
Excellent. Well, we wish you both and the students connected with the programs much fruitful dialogue, learning, discussion tonight. And when it's time for you to exit our meeting, please know we'll be thinking of you and send our greetings to the groups.
And Dean Hamilton, could I just add quickly, because I am going to have to jump off here shortly. I know that Josh earlier had put my email into the chat. And I truly, like I said at the beginning, this is such a joy to be able to talk with admitted students and incoming students. And so questions about Healing Democracy, PAL program, I would be so delighted to hear from you and be able to talk more in depth. And I hope to be able to see you and meet you through Healing Democracy. But if that does not work out with your schedule or for another reason, I look forward to being able to greet you on campus in the fall. So thank you all, and thanks Dean Hamilton for facilitating.
Thank you so much for being here, Nathan. Thank you.
And as I depart, I wanted to offer that my colleagues and myself and the Academic Advising Resource Center are available as a resource for questions about the curriculum, registration, courses. So please don't hesitate to be in touch with us. We are always eager to talk with incoming students and their families. So please be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have several additional categories of questions, and I'd like to try to touch upon just a few more while we're still able to stay together this evening. Two interrelated categories of questions had to do with study abroad and study away and languages. And these are very, very important to Oberlin. And we offer a number of languages as majors, as minors, as portions of concentrations. We do not have a language requirement per se, and that doesn't prevent students from flocking to courses to study language. We have a tremendous new global public health program and many fields that seek an international perspective. And what better way to immerse yourself in a new perspective than to be able to converse in the language of the people. We offer German and French and Russian and Spanish, Japanese and Chinese. We teach a year of Arabic. We teach courses in Italian. We teach Greek and Latin. We strongly encourage students to use their language skills in pursuit of new knowledge. We have a Languages Across the Curriculum program where you can do some of your coursework in a different language. We strongly encourage study away when it is safe. One of the many very devastating effects of COVID-19 was, of course, the restriction on travel. And it hurt to have to say no and to bring people home. But we greatly look forward to resuming international travel and study abroad as soon as that is safe. And we're optimistic that that won't be too terribly long. So study abroad can have a really important place in an Oberlin education. Conservatory students will have recitals in which they sing multiple pieces in multiple languages. Students pursue degrees in history or in anthropology or in biology, where they also combine their interest in an area of the world, and they express that interest by commitment to studying language. So this is a very important part of an Oberlin education, and we hope you'll continue to explore it. Isa.
Yeah, sorry, just like from a student's perspective as well, and something that I tell all of my tours is because of Oberlin's robust language department, we really make study abroad super accessible to anyone who wants to do it. That coupled with our distribution requirements, which we might touch on, or we have touched on a bit throughout the webinar. But like I said, kind of being able to explore your interests is very important to Oberlin. And so they make it really possible for you to do that in all of the different avenues. And so like you can study abroad and still graduate on time. In fact, it's encouraged. And a lot, kind of the stories that I end up telling about study abroad are that I've had friends who were really kind of anxious about studying abroad in a new environment, didn't really have a full grasp on the language, didn't know how they were going to do. It took a semester class within our language department, and then went the next semester abroad and felt fully capable when it came to learning the language, speaking the language, and being able to kind of survive and do that on their own, which is just kind of a testament to how great our language department is, and again, how accessible Oberlin tries to make the study abroad experience be for all of our students, because you know, it is kind of central to the Oberlin culture, that it is important to experience other people's cultures, as well as kind of be able to take, again, what we're learning in the classroom and expand and apply it to a lot of different areas. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. We've received questions about graduation requirements. What is required of an Oberlin student? Oberlin has formally the requirement to complete 32 courses in the College of Arts and Sciences. Well, what does that mean? I think that is an external structure that allows students to pursue their intellectual, academic, professional, social, career-oriented goals. Students need to choose a major, and the major is the way that they find an academic home at Oberlin. A major can basically run from 9 to 11 courses in a specific field. A student might major in biology or anthropology or sociology or computer science or political science or German. A student chooses that major as a way of anchoring oneself and pursuing knowledge in depth. The major, however, is not the only thing the person does while at Oberlin. There are very often either requirements or suggested related courses that enrich the study of the major field. Students sometimes like to explore, and the graduation requirements are orderly enough, but also flexible enough for students to be able to complete their course requirements and have time to look around and find what other areas of knowledge and skills they would like to build. Students take 3.5 or 4 courses every semester as a rule. And that is basically the number of courses that helps a student comfortably earn a bachelor's degree at Oberlin within 4 years. several students, not several, many students will be applying for the double degree program, which is a 5-year program between the conservatory and the college. Student earns a degree in the College of Arts and Sciences and a Bachelor of Music degree from the conservatory. That has a pretty well-defined course of study, and there's good information on our website. I'm going to refer for double degree to the website. But in general, Oberlin students are required to focus on writing skills, on quantitative and formal reasoning skills, and earn a quantitative and formal proficiency attributes, meaning they've focused on courses that develop quantitative skills. They have exploration requirements that give students the impetus to both focus in their field of chosen interest and also to look in related fields. So they may have a certain number of course requirements in natural sciences if they are an arts major, or vice versa. So the rule of thumb is 32 courses. Students must choose a major. They must choose a certain number of courses that develop these skills, writing and quantitative proficiency. Cultural diversity is a very important part of our curriculum, and many of our courses bring this attribute as well. By completing this course successfully, students earn that attribute. I think Oberlin has an abundance of intellectual riches, and it's not difficult for students to complete their degree requirements. I think the difficult point is choosing their courses, because there are quite a lot that are of tremendous interest to everyone. I think that was just an overview. Would there be other important details for me to mention on graduation requirements right now? I think, Mary, I'll turn to you, or did I cover most things?
Yeah, I think you covered it quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was actually reading questions while you were speaking, but did you mention the concentration, how the concentration dovetails? Okay. There's a question on that, I see.
Right. Concentrations are really superstructures. They're like an interdisciplinary minor. And so a concentration might bridge courses in a number of different departments, but they center on a theme. We're developing, we have a concentration now in business. We have concentration in global public health. We have concentrations in various aspects of music, book studies, literary translation, speaking of languages. Just a number of really interesting opportunities to help build coherence around courses and have students connect all of those threads together.
I'll just say kind of anecdotally, because I know it is, especially for, I think, parents to hear like double major with a minor in statistics and get quite flustered, and even other students to think about how many require, but I did a fair bit of kind of exploring my first couple years here, and I'm completely on track to graduate, taking classes in philosophy and psychology, and all of these different areas. So I kind of was able to end up double majoring, and like I said, Oberlin really makes it possible with kind of the different distribution requirements we have a lot of great counselors who are kind of guiding you throughout the way so that you don't get behind, but that allow you to kind of explore and do all of these things without fear that you won't be able to graduate on time. And so, like, from my personal experience, I was completely done with both my politics major and a majority of my distribution requirements after my second year at Oberlin by just taking classes that I was interested in and that were kind of piqued my interest and not really ones that I set on dealing with my major. So yeah.
Thank you. Let me clarify a question about graduation requirements that's in the chat. 32 courses total is required for completion of a bachelor's degree in the College of Arts and Sciences. And that would break down comfortably to 4 courses per semester. But depending on the individual courses and the individual student, there can be some variation. 3.5 courses is the expected number of courses. It's the required number of courses, the minimum level per semester. A student may take up to 4.5 without requiring extra permission from an advisor. If a student wishes to pursue more than that, which is quite a lot, after serious consultation with an advisor, permission might be given for 5, but basically 4 courses per semester is our rule of thumb. There can be some variation so long as the total at the end reaches 32. And yes, sometimes people pursue 2 majors, sometimes people pursue 3 majors. We don't encourage 3 majors. Because we don't encourage 2 majors either. However, some people like to do it. We realize that students like to have a sense of coherence and completion when they pursue fields of interest. 1 major will create a wonderful pathway and leave plenty of room for additional pursuits. If another sort of structure is important to a student to guide that student through the curriculum, that makes perfect sense. Beyond that, it isn't always helpful to impose the requirements of additional majors or minors. And we like to talk with students about why they want to choose so many formal structures when the courses are there for them, even without having to pursue multiple additional requirements for any 3rd major. So we tend to bring them back in from that pursuit, just because we want them to have a little bit more flexibility and freedom and balance and an opportunity to have some downtime and really enjoy their courses and their quality of life here on campus. So I think with that, I'd like to turn to just a more general question as we begin to close our conversation this evening. And that question is again about our Oberlin College community, with a small c, with a capital C, perhaps its relationship to the region. What makes Oberlin as a community stand out? And why did we choose to come here as faculty members, staff members, or students? So I'll turn to my co-panelists. What is it that makes Oberlin special? And what makes you glad that you're here? Mary, would you like to go first?
Sure, yeah. So there's a broad array of things that I think make Oberlin special. We, I think, are realistic about the challenges of the world right now and what a liberal arts education means to it. Now, you might say, well, there's a lot of schools that are there, and that's true. I think our faculty embrace our students as colleagues, and we learn together with them in the classroom. We show them the tools that we are learning, sometimes along with them, and we base our thinking, our classroom efforts on critical thinking. So even in the sciences, that includes all aspects from empathy to evidence to slowing down and reflecting. At a broader level of the institution, we currently are working on a Howard Hughes Medical Institute grant for inclusive excellence. And that is faculty across the college are trying to be better human beings and better teachers by understanding the perspectives of those who are not like us, and imparting this sense of the world on our students. The president also has a diversity initiative in tow right now, and that's a big effort to take a really serious look at the college. We have a long history of diversity, but that doesn't mean that we can't be doing better. And I'm really proud that we're taking a leading role in that. So, you know, there's many reasons why, as a faculty member, I'm glad I landed at Oberlin. First is that I absolutely love mentoring my students and watching them develop in the 4 years. I'm sure you all know this, but biologically, the brain makes great changes from the first week of the first year to the last week of the senior year. And all of those changes come with all sorts of physiological changes that make learning very challenging for everybody. And helping students navigate that has been a real joy. But I don't do that alone. I do that with the help of an incredible support system here, which includes counseling center, ombuds people, student learning success offices, and financial support from our sponsored program office that allows me to have 10 research students in my lab working on really important projects from my perspective, from the causative agent of a local cancer cluster to the ecology of West Nile virus transmission in Lorain County. And so for all of these reasons, it feels to me like a very special place. I feel extremely lucky to have been able to spend a career here, and extremely lucky to have the students that come through. That I have many friends and colleagues in other institutions who do not have this experience. There was one additional thing that I was going to add to that, but I can't remember what it was. But I should add that I will be very happy to talk with any of you by Zoom or email if there are questions. I see there's quite a few questions here. If anyone would like to do that to get your question answered.
Thank you so much. Isa, would you like to share?
Yeah, totally. So I always end off my tours with my why Oberlin statement. So I chose Oberlin for a very similar reason as I've kind of alluded to throughout this webinar. And at the risk of sounding repetitive, we'll say again, I have genuinely never been surrounded with a group of people who are so intensely passionate about what they do. And with that comes a really amazing sense of pride within the Oberlin community when it comes to, you know, talking with your friends to talk about what kind of research they're doing, or you know, sitting and studying with someone and having them get so excited about this essay that they're writing, and it's just like a wonderful environment to learn in. But not just that, again, like the empathy that I have felt on this campus, in that everyone will kind of welcome you into this space with open arms, where, you know, a stranger becomes a friend in an instant, just because, you know, you like flash a smile and then they ask you to sit with them for lunch or whatever it is. Oberlin is just the most welcoming place that not only supports you while you're at Oberlin. I answered a question about you know, resources for people who are struggling academically, and how we have a ton of resources throughout the college that helps with that. But not only succeed while you're in the classroom, but also when you are outside of the classroom and when you leave Oberlin. And different opportunities that I've been offered through my professors and through the entire community have really made me excited to be able to feel like I'm prepared to go out into the world. So whether that be connecting me to internships, or just having a professor that I know I can reach out to at any time for advice, whether it be the experience of doing research, or the experience of doing like a computer science lab that may end up being like an interview question when I apply for a job, whatever it is. I've definitely felt like I'm not just invested in Oberlin, but Oberlin is invested in me and how I end up doing when it comes to to post grad. And so I definitely couldn't see myself anywhere else. And I'm more than happy with my decision to come here. And I'm sure that you guys will be as well.
Thank you so much, Isa. I would round out these wonderful comments that I can echo in my own experience. I've been here since 1999, since the last millennium. And I have always cherished the teacher-learner relationship at Oberlin. I have learned from my students. I have become a better thinker, a better reader, writer, and teacher because of the Oberlin students with whom I have spent my time. I have had the honor of working with research students in the field of German, which is very unusual for undergraduate researchers in the humanities. And one of my researchers is credited as a co-author on a publication that was a translation of a very important topic that was published on the topic, difficult topic of the painful history of disability in the Third Reich. And we published this in Disability Studies Quarterly. I am currently working with 3 Oberlin students on a new publication and translation, and they will be credited in the publication for their contributions. And my research is made immeasurably better by their participation. And so it's been a wonderful experience to be at Oberlin College and to be open to the new questions, the new ideas, and the deep commitment to true learning that Oberlin students bring. I think this characterizes this very special place. So I very much look forward to welcoming our new admitted students, the class of 2025, and we cannot wait to see what you will teach us. So with that, I will turn it over to Josh.
Great, thank you all so much. I see that most of you stuck around for an hour and 30 minutes, so they're 15 minutes. So thank you so much. I am going to put up in the chat just a big post there about upcoming information. There's a lot of stuff that's all available on our virtual admitted student webpage. We have upcoming class visits starting next Monday. There are opportunities to ask questions of the admissions counselors. You can sign up for those on any day. We have lots of webinars. We have admitted student Q&As. There are game night hangouts. We definitely want to encourage you to participate in any and in all of these things. There's a Healing Democracy class that's going to be starting next month as well. There is so much stuff that we are offering you to help you see why Oberlin could be the perfect place for you. So I would encourage you to visit that virtual experience for accepted students page, see what's there. There's some stuff for parents only, because we want to give parents information they want. There's a lot of stuff for students. We are just excited to be here with you and to answer any questions you have. If you do have any more questions, I am putting up the general admissions office email address there, college.admissions@oberlin.edu. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to answer questions for you. But otherwise, thank you all so much. Amazing questions that you asked in the Q&A. Some we got done live, most of them we did behind the scenes, but thank you all so much. This was a wonderful evening, and have a wonderful night.